Woman, before anyone tried to label you, limit you, or silence you, God already defined you. You were not created as an afterthought, a backup plan, or a weaker version of anything. You were designed with intention, released with purpose, and entrusted with a gift that carries divine originality. The discomfort people feel around you is not because you are wrong, it is because you are rare. Woman, the gift God placed inside you is not common, and common minds fear what they cannot control. You were never meant to blend in, because purpose does not conform, it stands out. When God gives a gift, he gives responsibility with it. That gift inside you is not for applause, it is for impact. Some people are threatened by you not because you are loud, but because you are clear. Clarity exposes confusion. Conviction unsettles compromise. Your gift disrupts environments built on limitation. That is why they call you too much, too strong, or too independent. But let me remind you, you are not too much. You are fully equipped. When you walk into a room knowing who you are, insecurity begins to panic. Because identity is powerful, and power intimidates the unprepared. You see, purpose is dangerous to people who live without direction. A woman who knows her assignment becomes a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face themselves. Your gift was never meant to be hidden for the comfort of others. It was meant to be stewarded, refined, and released. Stop shrinking to fit places you were sent to transform. Stop apologizing for the excellence God wired into you. You are not rebellious. You are original, and originality always looks threatening to those who depend on imitation. God did not anoint you to be liked. He anointed you to be effective. So walk boldly, speak with wisdom, stand with authority, because when a woman understands her gift, she becomes unstoppable, not by force, but by purpose. Identity must be discovered before influence can be released, because influence without identity is dangerous, unstable, and temporary. When a person attempts to lead, speak, or impact others without first understanding who they are, they borrow definitions from the crowd. Borrowed identity produces borrowed confidence, and borrowed confidence collapses under pressure. Until you know who you are, you will always negotiate your value based on opinions, applause, or rejection. Identity answers the question of origin, and origin defines function. When you understand where you come from, you gain clarity about why you exist. Purpose flows out of identity, not ambition. Many people desire platforms, titles, and visibility, yet lack self-knowledge. They want influence without foundation, reach without roots. But anything that grows without roots will fall when the storms come. Influence must be supported by internal conviction, not external validation. A person who has not discovered identity will misuse influence. They will seek control instead of impact, attention instead of transformation. Influence without identity often leads to manipulation because insecurity always tries to prove itself. When you are unsure of who you are, you compete unnecessarily, imitate blindly, and react emotionally. Identity stabilizes the mind, disciplines the emotions, and aligns behavior with purpose. True influence flows naturally from identity. It does not need force, noise, or performance. When identity is settled, influence becomes authentic. People respond to clarity, not charisma. They follow conviction, not confusion. Identity creates consistency, and consistency builds trust. Trust is the currency of influence. Without identity, your influence will fluctuate depending on the environment you are in and the people you are around. Identity also protects influence. It sets boundaries on what you will accept, pursue, or tolerate. When you know who you are, you do not chase relevance because you understand assignment. You do not envy others because you recognize uniqueness. You do not shrink or exaggerate because you are secure. Identity eliminates the need to impress and replaces it with the discipline to serve purposefully. Influence is not about how many people hear you, but how many are changed by your presence. That level of impact requires self-awareness. Identity brings alignment between belief, behavior, and message. Without alignment, influence becomes noise. With alignment, even silence speaks. Identity gives weight to words and authority to actions. Discovery of identity is a process, not an event. It requires reflection, honesty, separation from distraction, and courage to confront truth. Many avoid identity discovery because it demands responsibility. Once you know who you are, excuses disappear. You become accountable for growth, development, and stewardship of what was placed within you. Until identity is discovered, influence remains premature, fragile, and misdirected. Purpose does not seek permission because it is not born from human approval. It originates from divine intention. What comes from intention carries authority, and authority does not ask to exist it exists ***. Purpose is not a suggestion, a preference, or a hobby. It is an assignment, and every assignment comes with responsibility. When a person begins to seek permission to walk in purpose, they unknowingly surrender ownership of their life to opinions. Permission seeking delays destiny and weakens conviction. Purpose demands that you take responsibility for what you have been given, not wait for validation from those who did not design you. You do not need consensus to be obedient. You need clarity. Responsibility is the proof that you believe in your purpose. Anyone can claim purpose, but only the responsible will develop it. Purpose requires discipline, consistency, and commitment. It demands that you grow beyond comfort, mature beyond emotion, and act beyond fear. Responsibility forces you to manage time, develop skill, and protect integrity, because purpose cannot survive negligence. Purpose will often place you in positions where approval is absent. It will call you to move when others hesitate, stand when others retreat, and build when others criticize. Responsibility means you move anyway. Not recklessly but deliberately, not emotionally but intentionally. Purpose does not wait for applause, it responds to assignment. When you understand responsibility, excuses lose power. Blame becomes irrelevant. Circumstances stop being obstacles and start becoming training grounds. Responsibility shifts your mindset from "why is this happening to me?" to "what is this preparing me for?" Purpose matures when responsibility is embraced. Purpose also demands accountability. You become accountable for what you ignore, delay, or misuse. The more purpose you carry, the greater the demand for character. Responsibility refines motives, aligns decisions, and keeps purpose from becoming self-centered. Purpose is never just about personal fulfillment. It is about contribution. Responsibility transforms pressure into preparation. What feels heavy is often evidence that something valuable has been entrusted to you. Purpose trusts you enough to stretch you. It will demand growth before comfort and obedience before understanding. Purpose does not negotiate with fear, insecurity, or approval. It demands that you take ownership of your calling, your development, and your impact. Responsibility is the language purpose speaks. Your gift reveals who is prepared and who is pretending, because authenticity exposes reality without effort. A true gift does not need announcement. It carries evidence. When you operate in what you were designed to do, substance begins to separate from performance. Those who are prepared recognize value, while those who are pretending feel threatened by it. Prepared people are not intimidated by your gift. They are sharpened by it. They understand that excellence is the result of discipline, development, and alignment. They respect process because they have endured it. When your gift is expressed with clarity and confidence, prepared individuals respond with humility, collaboration, and growth. They see purpose, not competition. Pretenders, however, rely on image rather than substance. Their confidence is fragile because it is built on appearance. Your gift disrupts their illusion. Without saying a word, you expose the difference between function and imitation. This is why your presence can create tension in certain environments. It is not personal, it is revelatory. A gift operates naturally, while pretending requires constant effort. Preparation produces consistency. Pretending produces inconsistency. When pressure increases, preparation stands firm, but pretending collapses. Your gift applies pressure simply by existing, and under that pressure, truth surfaces. Those who have done the work remain stable. Those who have not begin to deflect, criticize, or withdraw. Your gift also reveals motives. Prepared people ask questions because they want to learn. Pretenders ask questions to mask ignorance or to undermine. Prepared people celebrate growth. Pretenders feel exposed by it. The difference becomes evident over time because preparation has depth and pretending has limits. This revelation is unavoidable. You do not reveal others intentionally. Your gift does it organically. Light does not accuse darkness. It simply shines. In the same way, your gift illuminates skill gaps, character gaps, and purpose gaps. This is why some people draw closer while others distance themselves. Prepared individuals understand that gifts require stewardship. They recognize responsibility and honor it. Pretenders avoid responsibility because responsibility exposes weakness. Your gift, when fully expressed, demands accountability from the environment, and not everyone is willing to meet that demand. Your gift does not create division. It clarifies reality. It distinguishes those who have invested in growth from those who have invested in appearance. It separates readiness from pretense, substance from show. Clarity is threatening to environments built on confusion because confusion survives only where truth is undefined. When things are unclear, people can hide, manipulate, delay, and avoid responsibility. Confusion creates comfort for those who benefit from disorder because ambiguity allows control without accountability. The moment clarity enters such an environment, exposure begins. Clarity removes excuses. It draws lines where none existed before. It defines roles, reveals motives, and demands decisions. In a confused environment, people are accustomed to shifting standards and moving targets. Clarity disrupts that system by establishing direction and expectation. What was once tolerated is now questioned. What was once hidden is now visible. Environments built on confusion often resist clarity because clarity introduces responsibility. When clarity is present, people must either align or change. There is no longer space to pretend, procrastinate, or perform without substance. Clarity demands truth, and truth demands response. This is why clarity is often labeled as arrogance, rigidity, or rebellion by those who thrive in disorder. Clarity also threatens power structures rooted in manipulation. Confusion allows influence without integrity. When people do not understand the system, they are easier to control. Clarity educates, empowers, and liberates. It decentralizes power by giving people understanding. Those who rely on confusion lose authority when clarity arrives. A clear voice in a confused environment will always sound disruptive, not because it is wrong, but because it is different. Confusion prefers noise over direction, activity over progress. Clarity slows things down to define purpose before movement. That pause feels uncomfortable to those addicted to chaos. Clarity also brings alignment. It forces systems, relationships, and values to be examined. Anything misaligned begins to show strain. Confused environments avoid alignment because alignment exposes inefficiency and misuse of resources. Clarity reveals what is working, what is broken, and what must change. People who carry clarity often face resistance, isolation, or misinterpretation, not because they are aggressive, but because they are precise. Precision eliminates vagueness, and vagueness is a shield for insecurity. Clarity removes that shield. In the presence of clarity, confusion cannot coexist. One will dominate the other. This is why confused environments attempt to silence, label, or marginalize clarity rather than confront it. Clarity does not argue, it defines, and definition is dangerous to systems sustained by confusion. You are not designed for acceptance, but for assignment because your existence is rooted in purpose, not popularity. Acceptance is external and conditional. Assignment is internal and intentional. Acceptance depends on approval, trends, and comfort. Assignment depends on obedience, responsibility, and alignment. When a person lives for acceptance, they adjust themselves to fit expectations. When a person lives for assignment, they adjust their environment to fulfill purpose. Seeking acceptance often leads to compromise. It causes people to soften truth, dilute conviction, and delay action in order to remain liked. Assignment does the opposite. Assignment demands courage over comfort. It requires you to stand firm even when misunderstood, isolated, or opposed. Assignment does not negotiate with feelings. It functions on responsibility. Assignment gives direction when acceptance creates distraction. Acceptance asks, "How do they see me?" Assignment asks, "What must be done?" One is image-focused, the other impact-focused. When you prioritize acceptance, you become reactive, constantly adjusting to opinions. When you prioritize assignment, you become intentional, guided by purpose rather than pressure. Those who live for acceptance avoid risk because rejection feels like failure. Those who live for assignment understand that resistance is often confirmation. Assignment will place you in spaces where applause is absent and opposition is present, not because you are wrong, but because you are necessary. Assignment is often disruptive because it challenges what is familiar and comfortable. You are not created to be universally agreeable. You are created to be effective. Assignment may require saying no when others say yes, standing still when others rush, or speaking when others remain silent. Acceptance seeks harmony at any cost. Assignment seeks alignment, even if it creates tension. Assignment also defines boundaries. When you know your assignment, you stop explaining yourself to people who are not part of it. You stop overextending to gain approval. You stop shrinking to avoid conflict. Assignment gives you permission to be focused, selective, and disciplined. Acceptance fades as quickly as it comes, but assignment remains until it is fulfilled. Popularity shifts with seasons, but purpose demands completion. When your life is driven by assignment, your confidence is rooted in clarity, not applause. You were designed to carry responsibility, not to collect approval. Assignment gives your life direction, weight, and meaning. Acceptance may open doors, but assignment determines which doors matter. You are not designed for acceptance, but for assignment because your existence is rooted in purpose, not popularity. Acceptance is external and conditional. Assignment is internal and intentional. Acceptance depends on approval, trends, and comfort. Assignment depends on obedience, responsibility, and alignment. When a person lives for acceptance, they adjust themselves to fit expectations. When a person lives for assignment, they adjust their environment to fulfill purpose. Seeking acceptance often leads to compromise. It causes people to soften truth, dilute conviction, and delay action in order to remain liked. Assignment does the opposite. Assignment demands courage over comfort. It requires you to stand firm even when misunderstood, isolated, or opposed. Assignment does not negotiate with feelings. It functions on responsibility. Assignment gives direction when acceptance creates distraction. Acceptance asks, "How do they see me?" Assignment asks, "What must be done?" One is image-focused, the other impact-focused. When you prioritize acceptance, you become reactive, constantly adjusting to opinions. When you prioritize assignment, you become intentional, guided by purpose rather than pressure. Those who live for acceptance avoid risk because rejection feels like failure. Those who live for assignment understand that resistance is often confirmation. Assignment will place you in spaces where applause is absent and opposition is present, not because you are wrong, but because you are necessary. Assignment is often disruptive because it challenges what is familiar and comfortable. You were not created to be universally agreeable. You were created to be effective. Assignment may require saying no when others say yes, standing still when others rush, or speaking when others remain silent. Acceptance seeks harmony at any cost. Assignment seeks alignment, even if it creates tension. Assignment also defines boundaries. When you know your assignment, you stop explaining yourself to people who are not part of it. You stop overextending to gain approval. You stop shrinking to avoid conflict. Assignment gives you permission to be focused, selective, and disciplined. Acceptance fades as quickly as it comes, but assignment remains until it is fulfilled. Popularity shifts with seasons, but purpose demands completion. When your life is driven by assignment, your confidence is rooted in clarity, not applause. You were designed to carry responsibility, not to collect approval. Assignment gives your life direction, weight, and meaning. Acceptance may open doors, but assignment determines which doors matter. Originality will always offend imitation because authenticity exposes what imitation tries to hide. Imitation survives by copying forms without understanding function. It borrows appearance but lacks origin. Originality, however, flows from design. It is the natural expression of identity, and anything natural threatens what is artificial. Imitation depends on comparison. It studies others to decide how to behave, speak, or appear. Originality does not need reference points. It operates from internal clarity. When originality shows up, imitation becomes uncomfortable because it is reminded of its dependency. Authentic expression reveals the absence of substance in copied behavior. Imitation is fragile because it must be constantly maintained. It requires monitoring trends, tracking approval, and adjusting to remain relevant. Originality is stable because it is rooted in purpose. Stability exposes fragility. This is why originality is often labeled as pride, rebellion, or arrogance by those who imitate. It is not that originality is offensive. It is that it is uncontrollable. Originality also disrupts hierarchy. Imitation relies on systems where sameness is rewarded and difference is suppressed. Originality refuses to conform for comfort. It introduces new perspectives, new methods, and new standards. That disruption threatens environments built on repetition rather than innovation. Those who imitate often feel exposed in the presence of originality, not because originality attacks them, but because it highlights the gap between image and identity. Originality cannot be duplicated, and that reality frustrates imitation. What cannot be copied cannot be competed with. Originality demands responsibility. You cannot hide behind trends when you are original. You must own your decisions, develop your gift, and accept accountability. Imitation avoids responsibility by blending in. When originality stands confidently, it forces imitation to confront its avoidance. This offense is inevitable. Light does not insult darkness by existing. It simply reveals it. In the same way, originality does not intend to provoke, but it inevitably does. It challenges comfort zones and exposes laziness disguised as unity. Originality does not seek to be different. It seeks to be true, and truth will always disturb imitation because imitation depends on pretense. Power is quiet when it knows its source because confidence does not need noise to prove itself. Noise is often a substitute for insecurity. When a person understands where their authority comes from, they no longer feel the need to announce it. True power is settled, grounded, and restrained. It speaks with precision, not volume. Uncertain power overcompensates. It raises its voice, demands recognition, and reacts emotionally to opposition. But power that knows its source operates from assurance, not anxiety. It does not chase validation because it is already validated by origin. Knowing the source removes the fear of being questioned, challenged, or ignored. Power rooted in source understands limits. It knows when to act and when to remain still. Silence becomes strategy, not weakness. Restraint becomes strength, not fear. When power knows its source, it does not respond to every provocation because it is not threatened by resistance. It is focused on purpose, not pride. Quiet power is intentional. It listens more than it speaks. It observes before it moves. It understands timing, and timing is essential to effectiveness. Loud power reacts. Quiet power responds. One is emotional, the other is disciplined. One seeks control, the other exercises authority. Knowing the source also produces humility, not insecurity, but accuracy. Power recognizes that it is entrusted, not owned. This awareness removes arrogance and replaces it with stewardship. Power becomes a responsibility rather than a weapon. Quietness protects power from misuse. When power knows its source, it does not compete. It cooperates when necessary and stands alone when required. It does not compare itself to others because comparison signals doubt. Confidence rooted in source does not rush to prove relevance. It remains consistent until results speak. Quiet power is often misunderstood because it lacks drama. People expect power to dominate, but true power governs. It influences without intimidation and leads without coercion. Its presence shifts environments without force. Power that knows its source does not fear silence because silence does not diminish authority. Silence preserves it. Shrinking is a misuse of divine investment because what was placed inside you was never meant to be hidden, diluted, or suppressed. Investment implies expectation. Nothing valuable is invested to remain inactive. When gifts, abilities, insight, and purpose are deposited into a life, they are entrusted with the intent of growth, development, and return. Shrinking violates that trust. Shrinking often disguises itself as humility, patience, or wisdom. But true humility does not deny capacity. Humility acknowledges source while fully expressing function. When you shrink to make others comfortable, you dishonor the intention behind what was given to you. You reduce what was meant to expand. You silence what was designed to speak. Divine investment requires stewardship. Stewardship demands courage. Growth demands exposure. Shrinking avoids risk, but avoidance produces stagnation. What is not exercised becomes ineffective. What is not expressed becomes frustrated. Shrinking does not protect the gift. It slowly erodes it. When you shrink, you allow fear, opinion, and insecurity to dictate your behavior. That transfers ownership of your life to external forces. Divine investment was given to you, not to the approval of others. Shrinking shifts focus from responsibility to comfort, from purpose to preservation. Shrinking also affects environments. When those who carry solutions minimize themselves, problems remain unresolved. When those with clarity stay silent, confusion multiplies. When those with strength retreat, weakness gains ground. Shrinking is not neutral. It has consequences beyond the individual. Investment demands return, and return requires movement. You cannot produce fruit without taking space. Growth is visible, and visibility invites resistance. Shrinking attempts to avoid resistance, but resistance is often proof of relevance. What threatens comfort often carries change. Divine investment includes potential, but potential is only valuable when activated. Shrinking keeps potential locked in possibility rather than releasing it into impact. Investment without expression becomes waste. You are not entrusted with ability to blend in. You were entrusted with capacity to build, influence, and transform. Shrinking delays fulfillment and misuses what was intentionally placed within you. Authority comes from understanding why you were created, because purpose establishes legitimacy. When a person knows their reason for existence, their actions carry weight, their words carry conviction, and their presence carries influence. Authority is not granted by position first. It is produced by clarity. Without understanding purpose, authority becomes imitation rather than expression. Creation determines function. Nothing has authority outside of its designed purpose. When you operate within why you were created, resistance loses power because you are aligned with intention. Confusion weakens authority, but clarity strengthens it. When you know your assignment, you do not hesitate, over-explain, or seek permission to act. Authority is not volume, it is alignment. People with unclear purpose often raise their voice to compensate for inner uncertainty. Those who understand their creation speak with calm certainty. Their confidence is not aggressive, it is assured. They do not need to dominate because they are established. Understanding why you were created also defines boundaries. Authority grows when you know what to engage and what to ignore. You stop reacting to distractions that are outside your assignment. Focus sharpens authority. Distraction dilutes it. Purpose acts as a filter that preserves energy and direction. Authority attracts trust. When your actions are consistent with your purpose, people sense integrity. They may not agree with you, but they recognize stability. Stability builds credibility, and credibility releases influence. Authority rooted in purpose does not shift with pressure or popularity. When purpose is unknown, authority becomes borrowed. Borrowed authority collapses under challenge because it lacks foundation. But authority rooted in creation stands firm because it is supported by origin. You are not guessing who you are. You are functioning as designed. Understanding why you were created also produces responsibility. Authority increases as responsibility is embraced. The clearer the purpose, the greater the demand for discipline, growth, and accountability. Authority matures through obedience to assignment, not entitlement. True authority flows naturally when identity and purpose align. You do not force it, you embody it. Woman, never confuse resistance with rejection. Sometimes the pushback is proof that you are standing in purpose. Guard your gift. Develop your gift. Release your gift, because the same gift that scares them is the gift God will use to change lives. Walk in it without fear, without apology, and without delay.